What's up, guys? This will be my opinion on why EO to ZB isn't worth it. So Cookie Robber / James McDiarmid actually wrote a pretty nice summary about it. So what he said is the difference between PLL and the ZB sets people actually force is not as large as I'm suggesting, and that is true. Maybe the difference isn't 0.3 if you're really good at ZBLL, and high level people can often predict their ZB, and that means ignoring recalc time. It biases the comparison towards OLL and PLL. So, it's really hard to get to the point where it's genuinely saving time, and most people are probably losing time on it. So that's why I generally don't think it's worth it. The biggest problem with it right now is that there's people that are like barely sub 10 that are trying to use it, and they're wasting time on it. So I think there's better things you can be doing than doing EO to ZB when you're only sub 10 and you have a lot of things to work on, but you're just making yourself lose time on doing EO to ZB. Because I know for a fact that Timon is the only one that actually benefits from doing EO to ZB. It's really hard to do it. I mean, maybe Kyle also benefits from it. But in my opinion, I really do think that ZBLS is the way to go, not EO to ZB. But now let's move on to the comparison of OLL, PLL, and that compared to EO to ZB. So there's a lot of points that have been made against me, but I'm just going to clarify what I'm going to say. So I meant to say that basically, let's just say that PLL average is not 0.6. Let's just say my PLL average is like sub 1, right? Well, it is probably sub 1. And let's just say my TZBL average in solves is like 1.2, I guess, since the difference is not as large as you would think it is. Well, for this one, if you were to do EO to ZB, most people would do F sexy F prime. I guess maybe it is better to do something like that. I don't know. Or like, I don't know what angle you would do it on to make it a better case, but basically, for this one, you would just do F sexy F prime into TZB. At least that's what most people do. And the problem with that is F sexy F prime. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that in a solve it takes 0.4 to execute F sexy F prime. Well, let's take this OLL alg to execute. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it takes 0.7 to execute. So here's the thing. If you're doing this, even if you predict the ZBLL, it's not going to be easy. But if you just do the OLL and into a PLL, you're going to do the OLL in, like, let's just say 0.7, and then the PLL, let's just say it's sub 1, so that's like 1.7, right? Well, if you do a 0.4 OLL into like a 1.2 ZBLL, I guess you're saving 0.1 of a second. But the problem is, it's really hard to predict the ZBLL, and the only way to actually benefit from doing EO to ZB is using 2 flip algs to force the EO, so you can predict corner patterns and like where edges move and whatever. But the thing is, it doesn't actually apply to most people that are averaging only sub 10. Timon is the only one that's really benefiting from this, so I really don't think it's worth it unless you really want to invest your time on it. And yeah, like James said, it's really hard to get to the point where it's genuinely saving time, and most people are probably losing time on it. That's why I do not recommend EO to ZB, and you should just only do OLL and PLL until you're about like sub 7 and you're desperate to improve, because a lot of people plateau at sub 7 or like averaging 7. That would be a reasonable time to start doing it. But the thing is, if your PLLs are just barely sub 1 and you're averaging sub 7, don't do EO to ZB. You need to improve your OLL and PLL times, because that will make a greater difference, and it will make a greater improvement in general. So that's the problem with EO to ZB, in my opinion. Now, here's a lot of counter arguments. I'm just going to go against them. So, number 1 by Patrick Ponce, PLL is not 0.6 on average. That's assuming you basically nail all your executions and solve, which is not realistic. Yes, that is true. So, let's say it's not 0.6 on average. Well, if my PLL isn't 0.6 on average, then my ZBLL is also not 0.9 on average. So let's just increase both of them exponentially. And in my opinion, you'd actually increase ZBLL more because PLL, no matter who you talk to, it's going to be more practiced than ZBLL. No one is better at ZBLL than they are at PLL. So like, let's say you add 0.3 seconds to PLL, and let's say you add 0.4 seconds to the ZBLL. Well, my idea still applies. It's just that you're changing the numbers. Like EO to ZB still results in, for most people, faster times. Just because my PLL average isn't 0.6 doesn't mean that my point doesn't still stand. So that's my argument for that one. Now, another one is, okay, this is by Aladdin. So he's saying that ZBLL isn't actually that slow. And sure, I mean, if you practice it a lot, if you drill it a lot, if you spend hours into practicing it every single day, then sure, maybe with recognition, it can be more comparable to PLL. But here's the thing. Timon is one of the only people that can do it, if not the only person that can actually save time from doing it. So I really think you should improve your OLL and PLL before doing EO to ZB. And people are doing EO to ZB when they're not even sub 10 or barely sub 10, and it's really not worth it. It's not helping you much. And basically, you're putting the cart before the horse. You need to improve your OLL and PLL times, make them fast as possible before you try doing any advanced stuff, because that stuff is only the icing on the cake. That stuff is only going to help a tiny bit, if not at all. And what I really think is the future probably isn't EO to ZB, and the future is ZBLS into ZBLL. And you can see people like Qixin's Hao, who is doing it really well with EO to ZB on every single solve and getting sub 6 averages with it when she's only 6 years old. So that is my ideology. Don't do EO to ZB, do ZBLS to ZBLL. And yeah, and if you don't know ZBLL, please just do OLL to PLL. There's no reason to learn ZBLL just to do EO to ZB. Only learn ZBLL once you've mastered your OLLs and PLLs. One last thing I must say is most people's OLLs are not optimized at all. And there is a good alg for every single OLL, and I can sub 0.7 frame counted every single OLL, and it's not like they're going to be slower in solves when compared to ZBLL. Because if you slow down, like let's say you add 0.2 seconds to my OLL execution time. Well, you're going to have to add the same 0.2 seconds to my ZBLL time. But that's not even true. You're going to have more seconds to my ZBLL execution time, because no matter what, OLL is going to be more practiced than ZBLL, and OLL is always going to be more consistent than ZBLL, no matter how much work you do on it. Unless you just stop doing OLL entirely and only doing EO to ZB on every single solve, and that's just stupid. So I'm going to be honest with you, EO to ZB is going to be really hard to optimize so that you're actually improving your times. So yeah, I don't think it's the future. I think ZBLS to ZBLL is the future. There are so many good ZBLS to ZBLL options that you can do. For example, I saw this amazing alg by Qixin's Hao where she solved this pair by doing that. And I think this is the future. Like doing the pair like this, not EO to ZB. So yeah, that's just my opinion on this ideology. I mean, a lot of people don't agree with me, but if you want to argue in the comments, feel free to do so. I will try to respond to you. But this is just my opinion. Personally, I don't think anybody really made good points other than the fact that Timon is benefiting from it. I mean, sure, yeah, he's benefiting from it, but can you? I don't think so. It's going to be really hard. You're going to have to work really hard only to improve a tiny bit, and there are lots of things that you can improve on that will make a much bigger difference than doing EO to ZB. That is my opinion on EO to ZB. Hope this video makes sense. Hope this video helps. But anyways, yeah. No, let's not do that. Thanks for watching.